Hi everyone, welcome to tonight's Energetic Arts live stream. My name's Brett Anderson, and soon joining me we will have Andrew Dennis, a good friend of mine. Tonight's topic is foundations in frequency, and it's quite a large abstract topic. When I was talking with Andy last few days and I came up with this topic to talk about, he kind of said, it's kind of outside of my field of familiarity, and I tend to think the same way. It's quite an abstract topic, and just recently chatting with Deb, I said, I think I might have bitten off a bit more than I can chew on this one. The topic is so big and so abstract that I'm not sure how to approach it or tackle it. And she said to me, well, Brett Anderson, talking about the abstract is your forte. And I just kind of laughed because I wasn't sure how to receive that. But thanks everyone for joining us live in the moment. Uh, Sometimes I can see who you are, hit the like button, leave a reaction, a comment so I know who you are. And if you can't join us in the moment and you need to catch up later, then feel free to just leave a replay comment in the comment box. So I'm just checking in with, we'll see from time to time if Andy's available. I don't know what's keeping him, but I'm sure he'll be here soon. Um, but the reason why I wanted to tackle foundations in frequency is because it seems really clear to me through the study I've done and the practices that I've done that frequency or vibration is the precursor to physical reality, matter. And one thing that I noticed in the group is that when people were having breakthroughs or insights and wow moments, it was kind of often about things that I thought people were already aware of. And then I realized, well, no one's had my experience, no one's had my life and my orientation towards it and the way I perceive it. And so I started to recently dump a whole lot of videos on you guys, like from Greg Braden and some other people. And one thing I think we need to take into context is that most people's frame of perception is all sort of based on, let's say, I don't know if the word is right, contemporary mindset, based on history from, um, the crucifixion of Christ and, maybe a few thousand years beforehand and up until now, 2021. And so that's a really relatively short time frame of which to look at life through, considering, science is saying that the world is, billions of years old, and tests in places like the pyramids and the Sphinx date those structures back to at least 7,000 years, which is before official, time started. And so one thing that I look at when I'm studying all that stuff is that this seemed like a culture that was based, their foundations were in the mindset of frequency. They were looking at the world through an interconnectedness between all things, uh, an energy-based view of the world. And so this is where, structures like the pyramids and things like that are so bizarre to us in the way that we look at it, because it's like, well, how could they have built everything based on what we know? How could they have built it? And there's stories about, this goes back into the Tibetan culture as well, where they're using sound and vibration to lift solid stone. And so that sounds magical, but now we've seen that effect being carried out in experiments with tiny little pieces of matter, um, where they're using sound and acoustic resonance to lift particles, physical particles. And so the proof of concept is there, and can also be translated up to bigger scale when the technology and the awareness gets more refined. And so the stories that I've heard is that not only were they able to levitate these stones, but there's even more out there ones where people, or the gods, let's say, were able to focus their intention long enough on a particular pattern or structure, and matter would coagulate and collapse and and form into the shape that they were holding in their mind. So this is like creating structures and objects through thought alone. Now, this isn't a new idea, obviously, and people that I know of have been able to heal their bodies through thought alone and to manifest certain experiences in their life through thought alone. And so, um, what I wanted to do is bring everyone's attention back to basing their awareness in this idea that thought and emotion and frequency and vibration are the precursor to physical reality and matter. And if you do that, then all sorts of things are possible, because one of the things I noticed, especially recently, uh, you would have, if you've been following, you would have seen the video that I posted that we're running into a bit of problem with the border here and maybe not being able to get across. And it's very easy to get upset and angry at everything that's going on and start to take sides in this fight within this little frame of physical reality that's already collapsed, and feel like, well, at least for me, feel like, pretty powerless to do anything about it. But one thing I realized a while ago that I kind of forgot was that when you start to raise your energy inside your body, then you start to tune into new potentials in the field, and you start to collapse different possibilities into reality. And this is something that we're doing all the time, constantly, whether we are consciously aware that we're doing it or not. And so when we start to center ourselves in this idea that we're beginning in the foundation of vibration, let's say, or frequency or oscillation, energy, intention, information, then that when that starts to spill down and cascade down the levels, it seems a lot easier to start to change things in the future to align with what you would rather have them be than just to sit back and accept the course of things as they are. And so, I mean, we are probably already aware of that. If you've been watching the videos, you're probably already up to speed with that. But now it's kind of like, well, what can you do with it if that's the possibility? And one thing I wanted to talk about this with Andy, but he doesn't seem to be available at the moment for whatever reason. So I might open it up to whoever wants to have a chat about their experience in terms of focusing on their foundation in frequency, let's say. And if you want to jump on, just send out a little wave, say I'm ready to get on the screen with you. And if not, that's okay. But one of the things that was really struck me as really interesting, especially when listening to, say, okay, cool. we got somebody. Shaf, let's.
Hi.
Hey, how you going?
Hi.
Good to see
How are
you.
you?
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
sorry
good.
to hear about your issues with the accessing the hospital.
Yeah, well, it's interesting you say that because as soon as I came to accept the idea that that's probably, not going to likely open unless there's some miraculous thing happening, and I stopped pushing up against it and I turned to see where I was being pushed, then other opportunities started to open up. And possibly, if it all works out, it might work out better in anyway under the current circumstances. So thanks for that. And yeah, thanks for everyone else who's been messaging me and supporting me on that. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's such a I can imagine just, it's the first time that you do something, it's just so daunting and stressful, and I completely could understand your, anxiety about it all, but I'm glad it's
Mm.
working out better.
Yeah, thanks. I guess it's nothing new, like coming up against an edge of a problem or something. I guess what it is, structure is you come up against something in your life where you can't see a way through, right? Obviously,
Mm,
the border is closed. How do you get through? It's almost
mm,
very real. It's physical. And it's like, okay, well, this is out of my control. So what can I do? What can I do about it? Well, I can't physically push the border open. Um, so it was more like, how do I get okay with this first? First I have to accept, okay, this is what's happening, and once I sort of sit with it, then things can start to change. Um, and I've done this many times on many different things, but I don't think I've done it at this scale and to this depth, because this is very obviously it's a very personal thing for me.
mm, mm.
And I know everyone's going through this sort of thing in their own way, and whatever the structure of what people are going through right now is the same, where it's like, I'm
Yeah, I
kind
mean,
of stuck.
I've just finished an interview and it went well, and I've been at home the whole time with the coronavirus, so I've kind of felt very safe and protected, and felt the universe had my back, kept me in a safe place. And I was like, oh, what are the hours that I'd have to work? And it was like, oh, it's early, and I'm like, oh, okay, so I'd avoid the rush hour on the tube, but now, to get to work, you pretty much have to go on the tube and come across a lot of people. And so my reality is like, oh my God, there's a part of me that wants the job, but there's a part of me that's like dealing with, the reality everyone else had dealt with the last 16 months, that,
Mm,
you're putting yourself in harm's way just going to work. And and like, we're both Dr. Joe Dispenza, fans and students. And he was like, only saying on Monday that we have to raise our vibration, and while there's chaos in the world, we have to stay positive. And and this is where where all the teachings you have to put into practice.
mm,
Like, I have to really like be now, like I'll have to get up and basically know that every single day I have to hit the tube, and I'm going to come across a lot of people on the tube. It's just no way you can avoid it unless you get up at 7 in the morning and go really early. And I've had the double jab,
mm-hmm,
but you know, being at home, where I was coming across, apart from the people normally I'm at the swimming pool or the gym, and there's hardly anyone in the swimming pool or the gym or the cinema. So I've been living my life quite comfortably, not coming into contact with people for
Mm-hmm.
16 months, or even
Mm-hmm.
wearing a mask,
Mm-hmm.
or even being tested, you know. And the new reality is you have to be to go to work, you have to be tested twice a week, wear a mask all the time, come into contact with people on the tube. And, you know, it's like, it's, I'm sure people have adjusted, but for me, I've been very lucky that it's not been my reality until now.
Mm. It's interesting. You talk about raising your vibration and staying positive. You know, I look at it a little bit differently. I think a lot of people, positive, like let's look on the bright side of life. Monty Python. But
Mm.
I think that like one of the things that comes to mind is that people kind of forgotten. I think is that we all heard stories about the prophecies of Nostradamus, right? Remember Nostradamus? But I don't think many people remember that the guy worked with people who had leprosy for a long time and never got leprosy. Like he was not just around them, he was touching them, he was nursing them, he was doing whatever he could with those people. It's like, well, how does that work? What's going on there? Why are some people seemingly immune to this and other people are getting sick? What's going on there? And so for me, the way I look at it when we talk about frequency is that you're operating on a different level of energy where that virus can't exist in you,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like, it's like those people who can go into an environment where everyone's drinking and not feel like they want to participate, right? There's no desire there. They don't have to think positive, like I shouldn't drink. They just don't feel the need. So it's like when you're going and raising your energy, you're tuning into a potential where you don't have it. Like
Mm-hmm.
you've never had it, you never will. And so that's not easy in a world where everyone's telling you how dangerous it is out there, like the boogeyman's everywhere. It's in everyone. And, if we look back at the way, and this is kind of what I wanted to touch on when I talked about foundations in frequency, is that it seems like there's this campaign going on since the beginning of recorded history, at least, of trying to convince people of these nocebos that, there's fear, there's doubt, there's insecurity, there's sickness, there's jealousy, all these terrible things are out there. And yeah, they are. Like, you can't turn a blind eye to it. But do you need to participate in it? I found in my situation, when I started researching, it became quicksand. Like, I don't want to get bogged down in all that negativity, let's say. I don't mean negative, it's not good or bad. It's just, is that the direction that I want to focus my attention on? And my frequency? Is that the frequency I want to resonate with that's going to collapse my reality into physical matter? And the answer is no. It's definitely not. And so, and the temptation, the magnetism to get upset and to get angry and want to take a side was almost overwhelming. And I had to really catch myself because I was like, hey, that's part of the trap, right? Is to get you to take a side, because as long as you take a side, you're in the game. You're caught. You're caught in that reality. It's like, okay, whoa, I have to stop, I have to back up, I have to relax, I have to change my energy. We how many times have you heard that? It's time to change your energy, right? What does that mean? Well, for me, it means that I'm changing my energy to align with the potential in the infinite field of potentials that I'm choosing, not one that's being fed to me, not one that's being repeated, the beat of the drum, fear, 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 sickness, 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 helplessness, helplessness, helplessness. It's like, no, hang on. If everyone's their own, creator of their world. And with kids, it's different. But adults, look, you want to believe in that, that's fine. You believe in it all you like. You're an adult. You get to choose. But for me, I want to choose something else. In my situation, okay, we might not be able to get to the hospital and have the birth that I was envisioning. But then I go, hang on, in a field of infinite potential, there must be a better option than the one I was imagining. I don't know what it is. I can't even imagine it with all this noise, but it has to be there, it has to exist in this field of infinite soup of frequency. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start leaning in towards that, even though I don't know what it is or how it looks or how it feels. I've got an idea. So I'm going to lean towards that. I'm going to focus on that. And as soon as I did that, things started to open up in terms of, there were hospitals not as close, but there were hospitals we didn't even know were available, right? Then there was doctors that we could refer to that seemed just as nice, and all just by looking at a picture, you go, actually, you know what? I feel okay with this. I don't know why, but it feels okay. And all of a sudden, the path starts to open up. It's like that old saying in The Secret: you don't have to know how to get to your destination. It's like the lights on the car. You only have to go 200 meters down the road. Looks like you have to move.
I'm just popping to my room. Oh, okay. I'm just going to stay. Carry on. Sorry.
That's okay. So as soon as we start to change our energy, things start to change, right? Now, let's look at this, what just happened. You picked up and you've moved, right? Now, it might not seem like a big deal, but some of these changes between potential futures, the junctions, the forks in the road are as simple as that. And they look exactly the same as the one you came from, but they're not the same because now we've readjusted. Now the conversation is going to a different direction slightly than it was before. And I can look in your face. Your energy's changing in your face already. Little smile here, little change of breath, change of your posture. It all makes a difference, right? And like over time, you keep going in that direction. You may not know where you're going to end up, but if you're in line with how you feel, in the frequency of your choosing that feels right, then you're probably going to end up in a good place. So for me, in my example, I just started to see everything being okay. The birth's fine, Deb's fine, the baby's fine, I'm fine. It feels good. Everything worked out somehow. And now I just sort of try and not mess with it. I remember hearing a hairdresser say, the more you play with your hair, the worse it gets. Sometimes it's best just to get up and do something and leave it, right? And so now I let this infinite intelligence step in and do what it needs to do, like a GPS, and reroutes things for me. And so this is when you make your foundation in frequency or energy or the information of life,
Mm.
then how do I put this? You start to become a better navigator and a participator, you know, and all those little obstacles and things that, you know, make you put you in the box, they don't seem to apply as often to you. It's like, oh, actually, I've got other options here. I can see them now. We could have easily called this, you know, perception, not frequency or vibration. It's perception too. You know, how you see things changes the way you behave and how you move through life, and ultimately your outcomes for sure. But you already
Yeah,
you've heard this sort of thing already, I'm sure.
of course, but it's the practice of it. You know, I think that I I think I don't know. I just watched your last video with that guy, and I really enjoyed that conversation. And I don't really come into contact with that many people who can talk to me about the same sort of stuff. So I felt like I'd been committed to all of that work that I did with Dr. Joe, and I don't know. I just feel sometimes like I don't know. I just kind of feel am I a creator? And just sometimes it all comes. I'm just trying to. It's just like knowing stuff. Your teachers taught you stuff, and then like now you got to apply it, make it real.
Yeah, 100%. You know, I've said this before. It's easy to become enlightened in the monastery because the whole environment is conducive to it. You know,
Yeah, and living in
and it,
London, it's challenging.
oh, no doubt. Like London is I don't even know what the word for it is. Busy, um, you know, overcast. It's a really tough environment to do it in. But it's kind of like, well, if you can do it there, it's like New York, New York, you know, if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere, right? So part of it is like, okay, I've got to acknowledge that I'm in the advanced group here, right? I'm out in the field. It's a whole different thing to make it work in the field. It's like, you know, and if Andy was here and we were talking about martial arts, it's one thing to do it in training, whole different thing to do it in a tournament. And it's a very different thing altogether to do it in a real life situation where there's no
And I did
rules
martial
and no
arts as
referee.
well. I did martial arts as well, and it's my rock in my life. It's always that knowledge, you know. It's just it becomes who you are, and you know, gives me that strength.
And you know, a lot of it is it's not always going to work for sure. And the tide of it's kind of going against you. You know, it's going against all of us at the moment, and it's easy to
Yeah,
get caught up in it.
to tell you the truth, there's the part of me which is just so desperate to leave London. I want a peaceful life. I want to live by the beach. I just want to be surrounded by nature and nice people, and I kind of feel I'm living in a more hostile environment and people, and and it's been tough, and just the work isn't there in the countryside, or it's like infinite possibilities. Can I create a job, working in a better environment, basically?
And what do you think?
Where you place your energy, isn't it? Where you place your attention, anything is possible.
So the answer is yes. And so when you ask yourself that question, what kind of time frame are you looking at making that happen or allowing that to happen?
Within 3 years.
Okay. So what if you just took time out of the equation? Okay, maybe it takes less, maybe it takes longer, but somehow it's going to happen. Can you find the emotion to that?
No, I just don't feel the emotion. I just don't feel it much.
Mm-hmm. I know the feeling. So when you meditate, if you do when you get time, whenever that is, what's the meditation for?
Usually self-love.
Okay. Well, that's a big jump if you're not feeling very loving, right? If you just got off the tube and you've been bumping into people with masks on and rah, rah, rah. So one thing that for me is important to understand in meditation, and this is why we go into the void, right? The vast black space. It's not because for me that there's this feeling in there that I want to chase of self-love. It's that there's nothing in there. There's absolutely nothing in there. Nothing to distract me. Nothing to tell me how to think and feel. There's no um, there's no realities or futures that are made yet. There's just the emptiness of potential. And so, people go into meditation and think about nothing. So, well, you kind of need the space to do that first, right? So when you come home from work and you've had a big stressful day, maybe you sit and watch the TV or have a meal or you open a bottle of wine or whatever it is you do to unwind. That's the space for you to sort of disconnect from the consensus reality, right? And so when you do that, and when I go into a meditation, when I remember to do it, by the way, because often I'm thinking about things or I'm trying to imagine myself somewhere. The meditation to go into the void, all that does is allow me to reset and get my foundation back and set my frequency again. reset my frequency to something that's more useful and in line with what I actually want, right? And so you kind of got to play little tricks with yourself, because you're going, I know that I do this, I'm sure a lot of people do this, and this isn't telling anyone what to do, it's just an idea, because we're all students here learning together, right? Is that you kind of go, okay, well, this is my, Abraham would call this the contrast. This is the contrast. This is what I don't want. And it's in my face everywhere. It's in everybody's face. It's all over the place. It's everywhere. It could be in anyone all the time. At any moment, my whole life could go careering off into somewhere I don't want it to go. So that's what you don't want. Okay, that's pretty strong for everyone. But if we move out of duality and we go into unity, then you have the capacity to go the opposite way and to have so much of that energy going towards something you don't want to go towards what you do want as well. But you need the space to do it in. And then you go, okay, well, I'm going to fantasize about the right job or the right, living on the beach around good people. But if you got enough distance, you might just go, well, maybe I don't even want a job. Maybe I want some kind of support structure that just supports the lifestyle that I want. Maybe I don't even want to work anymore, if we're really honest. Or maybe the kind of work I want to do is just the kind of stuff that I want to do. I want to be paid for stuff I enjoy doing. I don't even know how that's going to work, right? You go, imagine that. Just imagine what that would be like. You're already smiling. You see how you start to tap into the emotion? It's there, right? It's right there now. It's right there now.
Yeah.
In no time.
Yeah. Because this is what I love. Like, like at the moment, my life is like, I normally start the day with the swim, and then I go to the gym, and then I come home and like I'm making lunch and food and like self-care. And then I spend the afternoons, reading or doing podcasts, like learning and having a good afternoon, and then I have a good evening, and I feel relaxed, and you know, this nurturing and self-care that I've been doing, has been it's been perfect. I don't have the money, and I'm basically about to start work to get the money in, but then we're going back to the old way of like, you have to hit the tube, go to work all day, come home exhausted, do it again, Monday to Friday. And it's that rat race lifestyle, where it's tough in London. But yeah, like normally I do feel that sets me up for the day when I wake up and I go for my swim, and then I go to the gym, and then I come home and do it. And like, yeah, I normally am in a different space. Like I definitely feel like I'm just doing, I just start the day doing what I love, and I carry on doing what I enjoy. And today's a turning point because I just had the interview at home on Teams, and they're going to let me know by the end of the day. So today will be the day where I'll know whether I carry on being at home, doing self-nurturing and being relaxed and not stressed. And I know the other reality is that if I go back to work in central London, it's going back to the tube journey and dealing with people and the stresses of working in London. So it's quite rare for me to be able to, to connect with you, because, over the years, I think you've been my Facebook friend for several years, and you know, I've always been at work, or I'm out in the gym, and so it's just the one day where you come on and I'm at home.
Funny that, isn't it? Yeah, well, it's one of the things I found really positive about this whole thing that we're going through is that it's given people time to see what it's like when they're not running in the rat race. One of the things that I found really frustrating when I went through my soapbox phase of like, hey, I know all this stuff, you guys should listen to this and get involved. As you do, you know, it's part of your, I think it's the first or second year into really going for it and waking up to things. You want everyone to feel the way you do, right? And one of the things was people were like, oh, that all sounds great, but I'm too busy. I'm too busy. It's just like, I just got a message from Andy, you know, he's saying like, it's been a crazy week and days are bleeding into each other, and you know, I'm really sorry, can we do another time? And I used to hear that all the time from just about everybody. And my thing was like, just got to carve some time out for yourself to get a different perspective, to center yourself. Got to get out of the current long enough to know that there's a different potential for you, and that if you want to go and be part of the rush and working and doing all that, that's fine. But as long as you're choosing that because that's what you're choosing, because you've got other options. Most people that I found in the past, they didn't even give themselves any time to even think about other options. Or they didn't. They said the biggest excuse is, I don't have any time. I don't have any time. Don't have any time. Don't have any time. Well, now everybody's got all the time. Everyone's got plenty of time. It's like, all right, now what are you doing with it? Oh, well, I'm angry because I have to wear a mask. I'm angry because I can't travel. I'm angry because of this, or that. It's like, well, you could have done all that before, but you didn't take the time to do it. Now you got the time and you can't do it. Now you know that's what you want to do. Right, it's okay. Everyone on the planet's going through their own personal version of this, and everyone's going through the contrast, and everyone's like, all right, well, what do I actually want? What's really important to me? You know, a lot of people, a lot of younger people were going out and partying up every weekend, not because they necessarily wanted to. Like some of them were doing as a coping strategy, just so they could get through the next week, knowing that there was no end in sight to that job that they hated. And you say, well, why don't you choose? I don't know what else to do. I'm not qualified for this. I'm not qualified. How am I going to do? How? I don't know how. And so all these blockages would come up just as much as they are now in the reverse mirror of those problems. And people just go, oh, well, just like I came up against again, that hopeless feeling of like, it's everywhere. I can't escape this ever. I'm a slave to this. The only way out is death. And now there's reincarnation. So I'm probably just going to pop back into another body and do the same thing again. Like this is never ending, ever, 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 life after life. And it's like, the heaviness of all that. And that's why you go to the void, because none of this reality is there. You're not even there. Your identity's not there. Your gender's not there. Your past isn't there. Your future's not there. Reality's gone. And people are afraid of the dark. You know, it's like, no, that's the reprieve. You know, that's the gift of the void, is that you can dwell there without any time. There's no time there either.
But when I was in the lifestyle before, you know, I took this break, I mean, you just feel like you're on this treadmill, you know, and it's like, it's that super fast level. You know,
Yes.
you like literally, and it's like you get up and it starts, and it's go 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 go, and then not only was I working like all the hours, like 40 hours of work, then the 10
Hmm.
hours commute, then I was volunteering and doing spiritual, events and courses in the evening and that, and I just found like I'm a human being, not a human
Mm.
doing, and it was like
Mm.
literally go 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 go. And then when I wasn't working and busy, it's like I know I'll buy a dress to feel better, because
Yep.
shopping, is an addiction. It sort of makes you feel better temporarily, and it was like my mind and my body was just in like so exhausted. I was like beyond exhausted, because even when I did stop, my body was just so jacked up. It didn't even know
Hmm.
how to relax.
Yep.
I didn't know. I stopped meditation because just couldn't do the meditation anymore. And it was like hyper vigilance, hyper alert, hyper stressed. My shoulders now are okay, but like my shoulders were rock solid. I went to a massage person, and they were just she couldn't even undo the knots. It was like my neck and my shoulders. Physically, I was like, really suffering. And I got adrenal fatigue, which has taken me almost 2 years to get over. And everything was out of imbalance. And
Hmm.
now, like looking at myself on screen with you now, I'm like, that's me on the screen. That's the real me, because the other me, I had put on so much weight, was like, I was like, that's not my healthy me. That's an unhealthy me. And I just think I brought everything into balance, like the last 2 years of that. I'm going to get up and I'm going to feel good by going swimming and going to the gym, look after my body, eat properly, and spend time relaxing. And my body and my mind just feel like, oh, this is what life is about. I came to this earth to feel this way, to feel
Hmm.
relaxed, to have the time to connect with you, have the time, this time to talk to you, because in the past, when I was working, I just wasn't at home, during the day, and it was just going, doing, and we need human connection. We just kind of need that time to slow down, to make time for that connection.
Absolutely. Yeah. Slow down and stop. Slow down and stop. Because when you stop, then you can have a look around. Yeah, all right, where do I want to go? Not where am I getting swept up in the current to go? Yeah. I think that's
Yeah.
probably the biggest blessing of this whole thing is that it's given people a breath.
Mm.
It's like, well, okay, the whole world's on lockdown, you know. Well, not the whole world, but you get my point. It's like, oh, we're
Yeah.
in lockdown. What am I going to do now? And yeah, for the first look, it's probably if you've lived your whole life like that, it's going to take all this time up until now, at least a year, probably two, for you really
Mm.
to unwind and for your
Yeah.
body to stop going, oh, it's that time again. I'm supposed to be stressed. It's that time again. I've got to do something.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, Deb and I have been, before all this were going, and company growing, and it was just breakneck speed all the time. I had to slow things down. And finally, I remember, you know, when last year, when we were in lockdown the first time, like 4 days, Deb starts walking around like she's got ants in her pants. Like, starts getting all squirmy. I'm like, what are you doing? I'm laughing at her. She's like, I'm just don't know. I feel like I need to do something. No, you don't have to do anything. In fact, What you need to do is not do anything right this minute and let all that squirminess and just let it out. You know, some people say let it go. It's like, no, let it out of your system. Let it escape. Let it escape so you can, then you've got space inside you where that was, it's not in your system anymore, that you can reuse for something else, whatever you want.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You know, I just kind of feel like we on one side of us, we're quite lucky that we do all this work with Dr. Joe, and I know it all, and I've got all the meditations. And then it's the other side is living in London and having to deal with the practicality of it all.
Yeah, well, that was one thing I noticed when doing the workshops consistently. Like, I don't know if many people know this, but I did every advanced and what is it? I can't remember what they are now. There's 3 levels, right? So I did the advanced workshops and the advanced follow-ups. I did all of them in a year, traveled all over the world, did every single one. There's like 20 something throughout the year. And that was nice to be able to be in that environment so consistently and to see the world in between and to visit people and all that sort of stuff. Bear in mind that those in between stages, the world still didn't stop. Like I was almost watching it zip past me. Like I was in slow motion and the world was on fast forward and watching everyone run around this mad rush to nowhere. And one thing I noticed was people would come in, they'd take the whole 4 days just to slow down and stop. It'd take them 4 days with all the help and all the meditations and the lectures just to calm down. And then boom, they were back on a plane, back into their life again. And we used to run therapeutic based camps for kids who were traumatized. And we had 4 days with them, minimum. It was a 4-day therapeutic based camp. We'd have, say, 20, 25 kids. And it wasn't until the last day that they actually started to come out of fight, flight, freeze. So the whole 4 days was just getting them out of beta, the beta brainwave state, which is, everything's assessing threats and am I safe and all that sort of stuff. And so they go straight back into their environment, wherever it was. And you hope that 4 days of all the therapy you're doing with them was going to hold long enough until they came back for the next one. And so the next phase to the company that we set up was to give them support in between those. And one thing now is that, people are either realizing they're in an environment they don't want to be in these breaks, or, they're realizing that all the stimulation that kept them distracted is not there anymore. And when they fall out of the good feelings, they're like, well, how do I get it back? How do I get back in that good feeling? And I can't go anywhere. Like, I can't get to the next workshop. How do I get back there? Or even if I get there, I don't know if I can get back there, because then I know I've got to come back to this again. So my thing was, okay, because I got asked to stay on as a leader. And I was like, okay, I think what I need to do is I need to come back into my life, however, whatever shape or form it is, whatever I feel good about or don't feel good about. And I need to make this my base Like the buck stops here. There's no more running. I'm going to make a stand here and I'm going to start working with what I know, what I've practiced, what I've experienced. You get a taste in the workshops of what it feels like when you have a success. So you know that it's possible. You know that it's real. You can't, no matter what anyone says, once you've had the experience, they can't take that away from you. You know that it's real, right? You've had that experience, I'm sure. That's one thing Dr. Joe is extremely good at, is inducing people to have an experience within those 4 days. So they knew that it was real. And then no matter what anyone told them when they got back in their life, no matter what stress happened, they knew, even if they didn't want to, if they took the blue pill and went back in the matrix, they were choosing it. It wasn't because, that stuff doesn't work. Like, no, it works. I'm just choosing not to do it. Right, if that's the case. So then it's like, all right, now I'm back in my life. There's all these things that I want to change. I've got the tools now. Maybe I don't have much time on the tools. Maybe I'm not as skilled as I hoped I was. Maybe, I'm not as spiritual as I make out that I am. Maybe what I really need to do is just practice this, make it the focus of my life. Because, when you know that you can start to change potentials in the timeline and in the field, and that theoretically at least, and you've had an experience of some small jumps maybe, that there is a potential where you can go from one point, one potential reality, to a completely other one on the other side of the universe, for example, that that's possible, then the only thing that you need to do to bridge the gap is get your skill level up. And so I made this point really early last year, and maybe it was a bit insensitive because I didn't realize the full effect of what the impact it was having. And I was in a good place. And I said, COVID-19 is a remote viewer's dream. And what I meant by that is that you're being told to stay at home. You're being told to take a break. And there's nothing else to do but practice, right? Or meander around and complain. Get on the bandwagon and conspiracy theorize and all that stuff. You can do all that, sure. But why not just sit down on the cushion and practice? What if you just gave yourself time each day to ignore what was going on out there? You can pick it up later and focus on what you've learned and apply it. See, a lot of people were going to Dr. Joe's workshops to learn this stuff. I'd learned this a decade earlier. I read his books when no one had even heard of the guy. And then What the Bleep came out, and people started to see his face and all that, and we all know where it's going now. And I wish him all the success, And when I went to the workshops, I was taking a break from my hectic life, and I was getting back into my practice. I wanted to go to an environment where people would practice this. It wasn't just an idea they'd read in a book, or that they went to, did a 6-week course and got a certificate, and now they're a master practitioner. I wanted to go in there and actually do it and be around other people that did it. I wanted to do that because I did it in sport and I did it in martial arts. And I knew that when I was in an environment, that warrior mode switched on in me, and I just went for it. And that's when I got all my gains, all my improvements, all my changes. And so, yeah, it's crap what we're going through. Yeah, there's a lot of political bullshit that's going along with it. But the silver lining is that we don't have to rush off anywhere tomorrow, most of us. All right, so if you aren't allowed to leave your house right? And you have to stay inside for your own safety, then what are you going to do now? Because if we go back into some old books, books on, on the Tibetan Buddhist practices, Lobsang Rampa wrote some books, and on one of them was called The Hermit, and it was about a monk that left. He was in the monastery, and part of the practice is that when you reach a certain level of development and skill level, you go into the hermitage. Have you heard of what this hermitage? Yes or
A
no?
little, a little.
A little.
Yeah.
So the hermitage is there's these caves in the mountain away from the monastery, and this particular one, there was a drip of water, so there was constantly water, and there was maybe a little bit of food, but probably not much. And eventually, what they do is they brick up the hermitage, and there's this little slit that people come and slide food in every now and then. They check on the monk to see if they're still okay, but they literally brick up and close them in. So there's no distraction, not even light. There's a sliver of light, but even that they close off. And all they're doing in there is slowing down so much and meditating and practicing, maybe leaving their body, maybe dropping the body and going to a higher level of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And so in this book, The Hermit, there are all these stories about all these, let's say, adventures in the astral that this monk was having. And there was something really interesting that came out recently where they found this mummified monk in a meditative posture. And they thought, oh, how long has he been dead? And then they started examining and doing tests, and they realized the tissue was still alive. Like, what's going on? This guy's in a state of suspended animation. The body's still alive. So where is he? Is he in there? He doesn't appear to be in there. Where is he? So it begs a lot of questions, and then you can, if you're looking at that, then you go, okay, well, we go back to ancient Egypt with all these mummies, and then there was that body found, where was it in, I think it was in Russia somewhere, or Eastern Europe, where this guy he was like a giant. I think he was 7 or 9 feet tall or something, and he looked like he was from Atlantis or something. And then I don't know if this is even real, but it makes you think about things in a different way. And this guy, these Russian soldiers found the tomb, went in there, and everyone died, like within weeks, like of some kind of radiation poisoning. Like the body had a field around it. And when you see the pictures of this guy, he looked like he was just having a really deep sleep. Body was thousands of years old, they reckon. Didn't have any aging on it. Everything looked fine. Almost like the consciousness, wherever it was, could come back, get back in the body, fire everything off again, and start walking around again. So what's going on there? And of course, it's all down there. That's conspiracy. It's not real. It's Photoshop, this and that. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. It's like, okay, what if there's something in that? What if you could actually get in there and test it? What if you could analyze that? What's happening there? Well, it lends to the idea that like I said, our foundation is in frequency, not matter, and the body can be dropped and released. Maybe that's what reincarnation is. Most people aren't skilled at leaving their body until they croak. So then they can finally get out, and then they get into a new body, they can try again. But what if you could practice this where you could step in and out of your own body? It's like reincarnating in the same body over and over again. Or instead of, popping out of, when you're talking about coming out of this dimension of reality and going into the void, when you come back, are you actually coming back in the same timeline? Or are you coming back in a different timeline? You're coming back in the same body, you're coming back in a slightly different version of your body. You know, you've moved again. The background's different again. Are we in a different timeline again? Or it feels like it. It feels like we're in a different frequency of conversation now, aren't we? We're not in the old reality anymore. It's somewhere else now. So, you know, the layer, the barrier, the veils between dimensions are as thin as a bubble if you become aware of that. And sometimes it just takes, okay, I'm going to have a new thought. I'm going to reset my frequency. I'm going to focus on something else. And now when I think about it and I find that emotion, even if I have to trick myself into feeling it, like through
No, I
fantasizing or
think
something.
I think in the space of we've been talking, I kind of feel when we started talking, I just finished the interview, and I was feeling a bit stressed. And now that we've had a long chat, I kind of feel like if I don't get the job, I get to spend time on my meditation and learning and doing what I love. So, you know, it's all going to be okay tomorrow, no matter what.
Yeah. I mean, you can look at like, well, if I don't get the job, I get to keep practicing, honing my craft. And if I do get the job, then I get to apply it in the field and test my mettle, you know. And then when you look at it from that point of view, it doesn't matter what's going on outside. It doesn't matter what the politicians are doing. It doesn't matter about what variant of the virus we're up to. You know, alpha, omega, delta, lambda, scamda, whatever. It doesn't matter. Because if, you know, we go back to Nostradamus, if your frequency's high enough, that thing's gonna bounce off you. It's gonna run away from you.
Yeah.
Right? And so maybe from that point of view, this is really just the opponent we need to get smarter and better at what we do. It's like the weight in the gym. If we didn't have that, we'd probably be just meandering around, doing the same old, you know.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's been a gift. Because, you know, Dr. Joe did those center of the magnet. And after he did that, my mind just shifted after that. And I was like, I'm at home, I'm safe. And it's been a gift. And like you said, if it ends today and I have to go back to work, then it's the application of it in you know.
Well, that's a good way to look at it. If you get the job, then you're ready to go. You know, you're ready to start. You hit the next level. You know, it's like, all right, let's see how good you are applying this.
Yeah, but
Oh,
I did the course in Germany in 2016, and I literally left that course and I started the new job on the Tuesday, and it was hell. It was 3 years of hell, and that's what rocked my rocked everything with Dr. Joe. And because like, what the F, like, there's no swear, I don't swear, but it was like, what the F, like, I've done all this work, yeah, and like, here I am in the shit. And like, by the end of the 3 years, I stopped, and I told you all my symptoms, how ill I became, you know, and now how I've built myself back up in the last 2 years. And so there's that fear of like in there and doing it all again.
Okay, so whatever happens, what's the lesson from what I'm hearing is that no matter what's going on, you want to stay relaxed,
Yeah.
right? So if we go back to the martial arts metaphor, right? When I was training in Melbourne doing Russian martial art called Sistema, it was taught to the Russian special forces, and it was all, it was during for wartime and being behind enemy lines and stuff like that. It was all very serious and weaponry and knives and guns and machine guns and stuff. And when it started to get, when the Cold War came down, the Iron Curtain came down, and the Cold War got democratized and people started learning it and teaching it and changing machine guns for sticks and things like that, so people could have a more practical use of it, or at least train in it in a way that maybe it would be applicable in day-to-day life. And so because it was all about, came from killing and maiming because it was for soldiers, when you start practicing it, you have to do it very slowly, almost like Tai Chi, not because, it was so, while you were learning it, you could learn control, because it's very easy, some of the movements, like in any martial art, to really hurt your training partner. They're not your opponent, they're a training partner. You don't want to hurt them, because if they're hurt, then you can't practice. So everything would be really slow, and then we'd build up and add intensity and add speed. And the better your skill level and the better your control, the faster and the more intense you could train. And then when you got good at doing that with one person, then you would add a second person, you'd have multiple attackers, and then a third person, until you could get into a situation where you could train taking on 4 or 5 people, right? Which is a lot at a fast, intense level. And then if you could do that really well, then they'd add a knife or 2 knives. Then eventually everyone would have a knife. And then if you got good at that, then someone would have a training aid gun, not a real gun, but a practice gun. So you could practice disarming the gun and the knife, right? And then, you keep escalating until you get better and better and better. But if your skill level's not there and your control's not there, there's no use putting you in a room with 5 people with guns and knives. All that's going to happen is you're going to stress out, tense up, freak out. Your brain is going to lock down, and your spirit is going to try and look for an exit and get away. You're in fight, flight, freeze. Now, when you're in fight, flight, freeze, you're not accessing all your faculties. You can't see all your potentials. You can't see the opportunities when they're there. And in effect, all you're doing is banging your head against the wall and burning your body out. So the idea is you come all the way back to where you're at. Okay, maybe it's back to working one-on-one with that person at 10% speed and 10% intensity until you get the control and the skill level. That's fine. If that's where you're at, that's where you're at. And you just practice there and practice that until you get so good at it, you're bored with it now. You need the next level of stress to keep you growing, but not too much, just enough. Call that eustress. Where that stress actually propels you to grow, right? If it's too much, and this is one thing I saw, is people were going into a workshop where the energy's high, the group's really positive. It's really easy to focus in those environments. There's a lot of energy going towards really good stuff. When you come out of it, it's just you against the world, right? So if it puts you into a situation like what you're saying, where you're going through hell, it's kind of like going, okay, I'm really interested in running. I want to be a great runner, for example. I'm really enjoying my morning jog. And you go, wow, wouldn't it be cool to be a gold medalist runner? And then tomorrow and for the next 3 years, you're training at an Olympic level with Olympians. It's a lot of stress. Even Olympians. I used to work with some Olympians. One was a not only a gold medalist in Olympic, sorry, she won everything except a gold medal in the Olympics. She was a 400-meter hurdler, which is a brutal, brutal athletic event. It's probably one of the hardest events to do. And she was a world champion from junior all the way through to open age. And the amount of pain that you have to overcome to be at that level and the strength of mind, that takes years to build up. It takes a lot of practice, takes a lot of learning, a lot of failure, a lot of losses, a lot of overcoming all that, a lot of support too. Someone like her, she had sponsors, she had 3 coaches, she had a trainer, she had a massage therapist, had a whole team making sure she could keep training. So if you don't have all that, then maybe it's not a good idea to go straight into the Olympic level. So scale it all back to where you are. So this being at home gives you the opportunity to start at zero again and go, okay, well, I'm not at zero, like that's boring. But let's see where I'm at. I'm at this level, I'm at that level. You know, if we talk about meditation, spiritual practice, self-care, how much of the day, percentage-wise, am I putting into that? And if that's, let's scale it down and make it even more tangible. If I'm doing a meditation, how long am I actually focused in that meditation? What's my presence like? If I sit down, can I sit down for an hour and be focused most of the time without wandering on a good day? Makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's what it was that I went from not working in 2016 after the workshop to going at 110 miles an hour. So you're in a sports car, and I was at 110 miles an hour flat out, 3 years, no break, apart from a few days in Mallorca, and which even when I went on holiday, my body was so stressed it didn't relax. And then I got adrenal fatigue, is basically burnout, basically. And now I've got my health back. Is that fear again? Here we go again.
So, all right, let's look at this logically. If you know that with, one workshop or two, or whatever you were at that time, and you went straight into that high speed, high intensity level, you had 3 years before your body started to go, oh, we've got to get out of this, or kaput,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So you go, all right, I know I've got 3 years before I need to make a decision if you get the job tomorrow.
Yeah.
But just like any athlete or martial artist who gets a bit longer in the tooth and realizes they can't, like, I can't train like I used to in my 20s, and I don't want to. And I want to be training the rest of my life. I want to get better forever, right? I want to be training right until the day that, I kind of want to be training the day before someone finds me asleep, dead in my bed, like, oh, that was a surprise. He was only at training yesterday. So how am I going to do that at 40 plus? Well, I have to reorientate my whole focus. My timeline isn't, I'm going to be really good in the next 2 or 3 years or 5 years. It's like, all right, this is the rest of my life, however long that's going to be. Then if we look at advances in medicine, that should be past 100. It should be baseline for everybody. So, okay, I've got a good 60 plus years left. So that changes the way I approach things. Maybe I'm not going to go hard or go home. Maybe I'm just going to take it easy because I've got 60 years of this. And maybe I don't want to do it in a way where I ever put my body in jeopardy anymore, and I'm never going to get another injury. So I have to pick my moments of when I go for it. Actually, I don't even pick my moments. I wait for my body to tell me that it's ready to go. And it's almost like you know, that horse that's ready to run. You're holding it back. You're holding it back until it's like, I can't hold this thing back anymore. It's got to run. So you go, all right, go. And you let it run. And then when it's run, you're satisfied. You're okay, back to the stable again, you know. And so it becomes more of a tinkering process. It becomes more, you're experimenting with things. You're not trying to get anywhere anymore. It's almost like, okay, I'm there. I've done that. I've been there. I've done that. I've achieved. So now, if I'm going to keep doing this because I'm good at it now, how can I do it with the idea of longevity involved? So here, let's expand this idea even further. Let's pick an even potential out further in the field. There's even scientists are saying now that potentially our generation, or my daughter's, who hasn't arrived yet, generation, could potentially be the first one to live forever with advances in technology and cell regeneration and lifestyle and good food and all that sort of stuff. You know, well, that's a whole different approach again, because now you also got to choose, like, hey, now if I want to die, I have to actually plan it. Right? It flips the perception back to front now. It's not like, oh, I've got to get it all in within the next 70, 80, 90 years, or, you know, I'm going to miss out. It's like, well, no, you're here for the long haul, baby. And, you know, if you want out, then you've got to make arrangements. Okay, well, now that changes things, because now my goals of where I want to end up completely change. Now, instead of going, oh, I want to learn a language, I'm going to choose a language. You can go, I want to learn all languages. And so it just changes your approach, changes your foundation. The whole frequency that you start from is different completely, all because of a little reframing. And why is because we now got the space to think about things differently without being distracted and, more importantly, interrupted. One of the things that used to drive me nuts was the interruptions, the emails, the text messages, the phone calls,
Yeah.
the work colleagues, you know, meaning well and good intention, but just not even aware that they were interrupting what I was doing in here. How could they know? And dealing with the outside, you know, friends, family, just people in general, you know. Now we're going to probably the only time in my lifetime where everyone's got the opportunity to go into the hermitage, at least for a few hours a day, and make it a focus. I think if you look at it from that perspective and put all the other stuff aside, not ignore it, but just put it aside for a little while, it could just be the most important time in history for human evolution. And this is probably, you know, when we go out 100 years from now, if we survive it, we go out into the stars and all that sort of stuff. And the human race actually goes more towards the utopian future that we all hope for, however that looks. And we probably can't even imagine it. It'd be so amazing from where we're standing. This is probably the year, the time, the little window where we're going to have this quantum leap, this massive jump in consciousness.
Mm.
And I think it's probably one of the reasons will be because we actually now have the time and space to think about other potential possibilities that we couldn't before, because we were so busy, so distracted, so stressed. They weren't even in our perception.
it's good. It's good to, I don't know, just to, I don't know, banter with you, because I kind of I feel more calmer.
Good. So that's transference, right? You would have remembered this. You probably would have, oh, I don't know. I haven't been for so long. Do you remember the video of the metronomes?
Yes.
Click, click, click,
Yeah.
click, click, click. Now, who knows which one was the leader, or if there was another force acting on all of them that was different from all of them? Who knows? It doesn't even matter. But eventually, they all start to synchronize, right? So
Yeah.
I had this idea. I thought, okay, well, because there was this really powerful moment when you're in those workshops where you're like, hey, this group is the group that's going to change the world.
Yeah.
You know, this group here is the ones that are going to anchor this frequency. We're the metronomes that every other one's going to tune into. So it's really important. There's a responsibility now to hold that frequency. And it's not like Toyota jump, yeah. It's being calm, it's being centered, it's being relaxed. It's allowing all this madness to pass through, not resist it, not fight with it, allow it to move out and through and release it. Give it a voice. All right, we've heard you. Yeah, we heard what you said now. Okay, let's move on. Let's stop doing this cycle. Let's get out of this timeline. Let's get out of this dimension. This is just going nowhere fast. It doesn't make any sense anymore. All
I
right,
mean,
so
like
we're
Dr.
here.
Joe was on Facebook on Monday talking about the chaos.
Mm,
We are living through the chaos, and we, like me and you, are the ones who, you're in Australia, I'm in London, you know, all the students are across the world, and they've got to be centered.
absolutely, centered. Beautiful word. You know, when you're going through the dark night of the soul, through the fire, you know, it's kind of like you just got to sit there and allow it to burn, you know, burn it all away. Just let it happen. And here's the other thing, like, okay, you've got that group, there's this group, there's probably, I don't know, thousands of other groups we don't even know that are all caught on to this idea and all doing it. I don't know about you, but every time I go through a breakthrough, there's this breakdown that happens at the same time. You know, just right when I'm on the cusp of something great, everything goes to shit. Well, not everything, but there's definitely a balance to it. You know, there's a falling away, there's a crumbling of the old, there's a dying off of things, there's a burning up of the unnecessary, the superfluous, and you get reduced down to what's more authentic, what's more truth, what's more you. You know, and I think well, this is me anyway, when I go through it, it's like, I don't know, I still feel like me, but just without all the crap, without all the guff, you know, without the fat. So I think we're frozen up here. Give it a second, see if we come back. And we're back. Can't quite hear you. No, still no sound from me anyway. You can hear me. No, you can't. Can't hear me either. All right. All right. We've been maybe we just had maybe that's our cue. Maybe we'll end it there. All right. So we'll wrap it up for now. Thanks very much for coming on and sharing this time with me. I really appreciate it. It was really cool. Um, Actually, if you don't mind, get onto energeticarts.com.au, send in your email, set up an account, and I'll send you out a gift for today for coming on and being the example for everybody. And thanks everyone for watching in the moment, and thank you all for watching whenever you see this. I look forward to seeing all your comments and reactions in the future, and we'll see you all in the next video, maybe next week. Seems to be good. We'll keep it going. Same bat time, same bat channel, and whoever wants to come on is welcome. We'll see you all in the next video. Thanks for attention.